Hi everyone, my name is Desmond and I just passed the LMSW licensing exam. I can't even begin to tell you guys the relief I feel right now. I passed it on my first try, so I'm even more grateful than you can even imagine. I think the only people who know what I'm going through right now are people who have passed the exam and know what it's like to see that pass congratulations on the screen when you click the mouse. But, I wanted to put together a video that just kind of gives some tips to everybody to sort of what it's like to take the exam, things that might help you, and just sort of help you prep for the exam. So let me just first start off by saying that it is not an easy exam. It's 170 questions. You've got 4 hours to do it, and it is just confusing. It's long, it's arduous, it's tedious, it's just not easy. And I like to think of myself as a pretty smart guy, but I'm telling you, it's not easy at all. So I hope the tips that I provide will help, sort of ease the anxiety, help you guys pass and figure out ways to sort of like get your way through the exam. So if you have any questions or comments, please post them. I'll do my best to answer them. I have a little cheat sheet here on my desk that you can't see that I'm gonna sort of go through all the tips that I listed. That, like I said, I hope really serves people well, and I hope that, will help you pass the exam. So my first tip is take the exam right away. If you are in graduate school, you are about to graduate anytime soon, whenever it is you're about to graduate, do not wait. Even though I passed the exam the first time, I am 8 months out from graduation. I graduated in May. My biggest regret is not listening to my professors and my field instructor who were like, listen, schedule the exam right after you graduate. There is no better prep for this exam than the coursework that we have just spent 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, however long it took to complete your MSW program. There is no better coursework prep than the coursework you've learned in school and you've paid all this money for. So I'm from New York. In New York, you have to have graduated first in order to take the exam. I know in New Jersey, you can take it in your last semester. So just take it and register for it as soon as you graduate or as soon as you can. You will not regret it. And, it's been statistically proven that people who take it closer to graduation pass it on the first try. There's a higher rate of them passing it on the first try. So please, if you take anything away from this list of tips, let that be the one that you take away. So my next tip is choosing the right study guide. I think we've all asked this question. I think it's probably the most frequently asked question. So for me, I'm not going to bash any study guides that are out there. I'm just going to recommend the one that I think worked for me. I'm just going to pull up a picture of it on my phone so I can show it to you guys. So the guide that I used is called the ASWB Master's Exam Secrets Study Guide, and it's by Mometrics Media LLC. Here's a picture of it. I'm going to show you a picture of it on my phone. Again, I can also post this if you have any questions. So that's the guide that I loved, that I can definitely say helped me pass this exam. For me, my study style is I'm not a very superfluous kind of guy. I'm a very linear sort of black and white thinker. I like things to be short, succinct, and bulleted, and that's how this book was. I was actually surprised at how short the book was when I got it. So I was just like, okay, is this really gonna, it's like, I think we're just so used to in our heads thinking like this huge sort of like lexicon of like thousands of pages are going to show up, and it's the complete opposite. But I loved it, and I'm telling you, I honestly feel this book helped me pass the exam. So that's the book that worked for me. My recommendation to anybody out there is flip through a couple of study guides before you decide on which one to buy. I mean, they vary in price, they vary in length, they vary in the type of content that they cover. So go with whatever works for you. Again, that's what worked for me. So my third point is definitely pace yourself. Like I was saying earlier, you get 4 hours for the exam. It took me exactly 93 minutes to the second to finish the exam, but that was just me. I tend not to dwell on questions. Like, you can come back to questions, you can flag them, you can leave them for later. That's not the type of person I am. I need to answer the question, have closure in my life, and move on. So it took me 93 minutes. I know people who took, for the exact amount of time of 4 hours. I know people who took less than the 90 minutes. So definitely pace yourself. They always tell you before you start the exam, get up, stretch, go to the bathroom, all these things. But just remember that all those things that you do have to be accounted for in the 4 hours. You cannot take more time than 4 hours. The clock starts at exactly 4 hours and it ends after exactly 4 hours is completed. You do not get a second more and you do not get a second less. So just bear that in mind when you're making your way through the exam. Okay. So my next question is probably something we've all discussed at some point, and it's how to narrow it down to the right answer. I don't know that there is a right answer to this question, but here's what I did. So, I took a practice course. The graduate school that I went to, was fortunate enough, they did an all-day practice seminar for us, specifically to help us with this exam, which I thought was awesome. But then again, we paid enough money to go there, so I was like, you better do this for us. But anyway, that's neither here nor there at this point. So anyway, one of the strategies that they taught us was that you should be able to narrow it down to at least 2 answers. But my question was like, okay, so I've narrowed it down to 2 answers. Now how do I choose? Because it helps, but now you're still left with these 2 answers that you have to choose from. So my strategy was that I always went, once I narrowed it down, if I didn't know how to choose between the two, if I wasn't sure of what the answer was, I try to go with the answer that was the most client-centric and the most client-focused. I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense. It's been beaten to our heads since day one. With social work, it's all about the client, client right to refusal, client, self-right to determination, all of those things. So for me, when I was stuck between 2 answers, I sort of put myself in the position, which of these 2 answers is the most client focused, where it brings it back to the client. And that's how I chose between 2 answers. Again, obviously it worked for me. I hope it works for you, but that's kind of like how I narrowed it down between the 2 answers. Okay. Okay, so another tip that I wanted to sort of provide you guys with is that when it comes to answering the questions, and I sort of really realized this when I was taking the test, do not answer the questions the way you would based on your job. So I think a lot of us answer the questions based on how would I react at work? How have I been doing this at work? Definitely don't do it that way. Do it the way we were taught and do it the way the code of ethics teaches us. And the reason why I say this is because we're all guilty of it. We all take shortcuts at work. We all sort of do what sort of saves us the most time. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but we really need to answer these questions, not based on how work teaches us, not based on what our supervisors tell us, but based on what we have learned in school and based on what we have been taught by the code of ethics. And I think if you do that, you will get so many more questions right than wrong, because these questions really are tricky. And whoever put these questions together knows how to trick social workers, because they give so many answers that I looked at it, I was like, wow, yeah, that's how I do it at work. That has to be the right answer. But then I was like, wait a second. Everybody's job is different. This is not what they're looking for. They're looking to see how I was taught to do this, how the code of ethics teaches me to do this. And then ultimately, in some cases, I change my answer. So I'm telling you, don't answer the questions based on what you would do at work. Answer the questions based on how we were taught and what the code of ethics tells us. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the app review. The app that I think most of us, hold on one second, I'm just going to pull it up on my phone. The app that I think most of us have heard of or have used is called Pocket Prep by the ASWB. Okay, so I've heard a lot of mixed things about the app. Probably a little bit more leaning to the negative than to the positive. Personally, I loved the app, and the reason why I loved it so much is because it got me thinking in a test mode. And what I mean by that is, for those of you who've taken the test, you will know that the answers are asked, the questions are asked in a very specific sort of way. And that's how the questions are on the app. So if you get anything from the app, is that it trains your brain on how to think the right way in order to answer the questions on the exam. Because the way the questions are asked on the exam, we don't walk around every day thinking like that. I mean, I don't know, maybe some of us do, and maybe those are the people who get a perfect score on the exam, but I know I don't. So for me, that's what I really liked about the app. Here's what it looks like. You can get it in the iTunes store. I'm an iPhone user, so I don't know about like Android and all that stuff, but it's called Pocket Prep. So again, for me, I think if you get anything out of Pocket Prep, use it at least to help get your mind trained to how you think in terms of answering these questions. Because again, like I said, the questions are asked in a very, very sort of specific way, and you really have to work your train of thought to sort of like meet those, like sort of like change your train of thought to meet the way the questions are being asked. And so finally, my final point is, listen, if you fail this exam, even if you fail it multiple times, I know people who have taken it and have passed it finally on like their fifth and sixth times. I know that's a little daunting because every time you take the exam and you fail it, you have to pay to take it again, and it's not a cheap exam. But you know what? Sometimes, who knows, maybe it's fate, maybe it's destiny, maybe there's just a magic number for all of us out there. Some people are meant to pass it on the first try, some people are meant to pass it on the 10th try. I don't know. But my point is, don't think of yourself as being stupid. Don't think of yourself as not being smart. I know many smart people who didn't pass it on the first try, and I know many people who I was like, I guarantee this person's not going to pass it on their first try. So it's just all about how you take exams. And like I said, the questions are not easy. They are meant to trick you. Like, they are meant to stump you and really make you reread and figure them out and apply them. And like I said, we just don't walk around every day thinking like that in everyday life. So you really have to prepare for this exam. But my point being is that don't think any less of yourself. Have your cry day, get depressed for one day, order a pizza, and watch a corny movie. I don't know, whatever your therapy is, or self-care, or whatever you want to call it. But pick yourself up, start studying again. Maybe you need to change your study tactics, and maybe you just need to sort of rejigger how you do things. But do not beat yourself up too much. Like I said, it's a tough exam. Now that a few years ago they changed how they sort of do the exam. So the national average of people passing the first time is starting to slowly go down. So it's getting tougher for all of us. So do your best, study your hardest, and I hope these tips helped. Again, if you have any questions or concerns or want to know more about anything else, please post in the comments. I'll try to answer them as quickly as I can, and I wish you all the best of luck. I know I sound like a broken record, and I hate to say it again, but it's not an easy exam. I went to one of the big name MSW programs out there in New York that's ranked, really highly by US News and World Report and stuff like that, and even for somebody like me who I've always done well in school, I've always gotten good grades, it's not an easy exam. So figure out what your test prep strategy is, stick to it, study as often and as hard as you can, and just schedule the exam when you know you're ready. Again, if you're about to graduate from graduate school, please do not wait very long to take the exam. I know life, things in life happen. I found a job right out of graduate school. Like, I graduated at the end of May. I started my job the first week of June. So I barely even had a week in between walking down the aisle and graduating and starting my job. But don't make excuses, schedule it. You could take it on a Saturday. You could do it whatever you can. I mean, it's pretty, the timing is pretty flexible to fit it into your schedule. So, again, I can't say how important it is for you to take it as close to, when you graduate, because things are fresh in your mind. You've just gotten out when all the material is fresh. So, yeah, that's about it. So again, if you guys have any comments or questions, post them. I'll do my best to answer them. And I wish you all the best of luck. It's a tough exam, so do your best. Thanks, everyone.